There are three things I know for certain about the Blackwell triplets. One, they are the most powerful wolf alpha kings in the entire Pacific Northwest, ruling over a territory so vast it swallows 4 counties whole. Two, 8 months ago, they looked me dead in the eyes and told me I was nothing. And three, I am currently sitting in a hospital waiting room in Portland, Oregon, wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big, eating vending machine crackers, and growing their baby. So, yeah, life is funny like that. My name is Callum Reyes. I am 23 years old. I am 5'8" on a good day, mixed heritage, with dark hair that refuses to cooperate with gravity, and eyes my mother once called the color of old honey. I am an Omega, unranked, unregistered with any pack, voluntarily, permanently, aggressively unaffiliated. Soon I like it that way. Or I did. The fluorescent light above me flickers. A toddler 3 seats down is crying because his juice box collapsed. I understand that child on a spiritual level. I press my palm flat against my thigh, careful not to touch the plastic armrest beside me. That is the thing about psychometry. It does not ask permission. One brush of skin against an object, and I get the full story. Every hand that ever gripped it, every emotion soaked into the surface, every secret the material absorbed over years of being touched and forgotten. I have been managing it since I was 14. Gloves in winter, careful hands always. A careful life built around not knowing things I was never supposed to know. And yet somehow I still ended up here. The nurse at the front desk glances at me for the 3rd time. I smile. She looks away. When I am used to that, the particular look people give an unmated Omega sitting alone in a medical waiting room with a belly that is very clearly not a food baby anymore. I pull my hoodie tighter. 8 months ago, the Blackwell triplet alphas stood in front of me at the Regional PAC Summit in Bend and delivered their verdict with all the warmth of a corporate memo. Elliot, the eldest, spoke first, calm, cold, surgical. You don't carry the markers we require. The bond won't hold. Donovan, the middle one, did not even look at me. And Reid, who had spent 2 weeks texting me things that made my face hot, just stood there, quiet, jaw tight, eyes somewhere above my left shoulder like I was a smudge on the wall. Rejected, not marked, not bonded, just quietly, efficiently discarded. I left Bend that same night. No scene, no tears. And I am not built for scenes. I drove 4 hours back to Portland with the radio up and my gloves on, and I told myself it was fine. Omegas get rejected. It happens. I was not special, and I never expected to be. What I did not expect, what no reasonable person would expect, was what happened 3 weeks later when I woke up at 6 in the morning with my body running a temperature that had nothing to do with fever. Heat. My first one in 4 years. Sudden. Violent. Completely unannounced. I will not go into detail because this is not that kind of story. What I will say is this. I was alone. I handled it. I used the medical protocol my doctor prescribed, and I moved on with my life like a responsible adult who definitely did not cry about it afterward. Except apparently the protocol failed. Apparently there was a 1 in several thousand statistical anomaly that my body, ever the overachiever, decided to become. Apparently when a rejected Omega goes into heat with a fresh, unresolved alpha bond still burning under the skin, still chemically active, still biologically present regardless of what 3 cold men decided in a conference room in Bend, the body sometimes makes decisions that the brain does not sign off on. That is the clinical explanation my OB gave me, very gently, in this exact hospital 7 months ago. The non-clinical explanation is that my body held on to their scent like a grudge and did something catastrophic with it. The toddler's juice box is fixed now. He has stopped crying. I am mildly jealous. And I reach into my bag and pull out the small river stone I carry everywhere. Smooth gray basalt I picked up from the Columbia River when I was 19. It is the one object I touch freely, the one surface I have held so many times that its history is just mine now. Just my own heartbeats layered over years, worn into the rock like warmth. I hold it and breathe. The baby shifts, a slow rolling movement under my ribs that still, 8 months in, catches me off guard every single time. I press my free hand to my side, gloved fingers against the fabric of my hoodie, and something in my chest does that complicated thing it always does. Not quite love, not quite terror. Something that lives exactly between the two and refuses to pick a side. Callum Reyes? A nurse appears at the doorway. I stand, tuck the stone back into my bag, Heir and follow her down the hall. The appointment is routine. Checkup, vitals, the usual indignities of the third trimester. My doctor, Dr. Patricia Osei, who has the energy of a woman who has seen everything and is impressed by none of it, reviews my chart without looking up. Stress levels still elevated, she says. Yep. Are you eating? Crackers. She looks up. Callum. And apple juice. It is a balanced diet. She does not laugh. She does, however, slide a meal plan across the desk with the quiet authority of someone who will not be argued with. I take it. It is on the walk back through the waiting room, coat pulled on, bag over one shoulder, stone in my pocket, that I stop. Because standing at the front desk, all 6 foot something of him, in a charcoal jacket with a jaw sharp enough to cut glass, there is a face I have not seen in 8 months. Reid Blackwell, and he is staring straight at me, and I am standing in the middle of a hospital waiting room, looking like I lost a bet with gravity, holding a meal plan for pregnant omegas, with a stomach so obviously round that there is absolutely no universe in which I can pretend I am just bloated. My brain, bless it, offers 3 options in rapid succession. Option 1, walk out the side door like I never existed. Option 2, fake a medical emergency. Option 3, stand here like an idiot while 8 months of carefully constructed emotional distance dissolves under fluorescent lighting. I go with option 3, apparently. Reid does not move. He is standing at the front desk with one hand flat on the counter and his eyes locked on me like I just materialized out of thin air. Heir, which from his perspective, I basically did. His jaw is doing that thing I remember. Tight, controlled, the particular tension of a man who is excellent at not showing what is happening behind his eyes. I am an omega with psychometry. I have spent my entire adult life reading what objects hold and people hide. I do not need to touch him to know he is not okay right now. I lift my chin, adjust my bag strap, and walk toward the exit like a man with places to be and zero interest in dramatic hospital reunions. Callum! His voice is lower than I remember. Or maybe I just forgot how it lands. Not loud, never loud, but weighted in a way that makes the air feel slightly thicker. I stop walking. I do not turn around. The waiting room has gone very, very quiet, which is impressive considering there were 11 people in it 30 seconds ago. The toddler with the juice box is staring at me. I relate to him less now. I turn around slowly. Reid has stepped away from the desk. He is closer than I expected, maybe 6 feet away. And up close, he looks like a man who has not been sleeping. There are shadows under his eyes that his expensive jacket cannot fix, and something in his expression is doing a complicated negotiation between controlled and completely unraveling. I wait. He stops, starts again. His eyes drop to my stomach and then come back up to my face so fast it almost looks involuntary. You're pregnant. Incredible, I say. 8 months of medical school right there. His eyes narrow slightly. Callum. Reid. We stare at each other. The toddler's mother has pulled him into her lap. Smart woman. How? He starts. And then he seems to realize that is a terrible first word for this conversation and closes his mouth again. That is a fascinating question, I say pleasantly. You know what else is fascinating? The fact that you and your brother stood in front of me and Ben and told me the bond would not hold. Those were your words, right? Specifically Elliot's words. But you were standing right there, so I'm going to go ahead and count you. Something moves through his expression. I cannot name it from here, and I refuse to try. I didn't know, he says. Which part? Any of it. His voice drops. I didn't know you went into heat. I didn't know I didn't know. And here is the thing about Reid Blackwell that I have been carefully not thinking about for 8 months. He is not a good liar. His brothers are. Elliot could deliver bad news with the warmth of a man discussing the weather. Donovan simply said nothing, which is its own kind of dishonesty. But Reid always had this quality where the truth kept trying to surface through whatever wall he built around it. Right now, standing in this waiting room with the fluorescent light doing him no favors, he looks like a man who has been carrying something heavy for a long time and just walked directly into the thing that explains why. I feel absolutely nothing about this. I am a rock. I am the basalt stone in my pocket. I am geology. How did you find me? I ask. A pause. I wasn't looking for you specifically. Elliot has a contact at the regional medical registry. There have been some developments. With the pack. He stops. With the three of us. I wait because I am not going to make this easy for him. That is a personal policy. We were diagnosed, he says, and something shifts in his voice. Something quiet and painful that he covers almost immediately. 4 months ago, all three of us, the pack doctors ran full fertility assessments after some complications. The results came back the same across the board. He looks at me directly. They said we're infertile, Callum. All three of us. Medically confirmed. No viable bond offspring possible. The waiting room is very quiet. I look at him. I look down at my extremely pregnant stomach. I look back up at him. I say. Yeah. That is, I pause, searching for the right word, a significant medical discrepancy. I'm aware. Like, scientifically speaking, one of us is very wrong. Callum, because I have ultrasound photos. I have a due date. I have a doctor who gave me a meal plan that I'm holding in my hand right now. I lift the paper slightly. So either your pack doctors are incompetent or the universe has a deeply specific sense of humor. Reid is quiet for a long moment, and then very softly he says, "Can we go somewhere and talk?" I look at him for a long time. The stone in my pocket is warm against my hip. The baby shifts again, slow and rolling, unbothered, completely unaware that his father is standing 6 feet away, looking like a man watching his entire understanding of the last 8 months rewrite itself in real time. "I already know," I say, and I walk out the door. The November air hits me like a cold, flat hand across the face. And honestly, good. I need it. My cheeks are warm, and my pulse is doing something embarrassing, and I need the Portland afternoon to remind me that I'm a rational adult who makes rational decisions and does not stand in hospital waiting rooms having feelings about men who rejected him. I make it approximately 14 steps before I hear the door open behind me. Of course. Callum. I said no. I heard you. His footsteps are unhurried. Long strides, quiet on the pavement. I'm not asking you to forgive us. I'm asking you to let me walk you to your car. I stop walking. I turn around slowly because I want him to see my full facial expression when I deliver this next sentence. Reid, look at me. Really look at me. Do I look like a man who needs to be walked to his car? He looks at me. His expression does something careful and controlled that almost hides the thing underneath it. No, he says quietly. You look like a man who's been carrying something alone for 8 months. That lands somewhere I was not prepared for it to land. I turn back around and keep walking. He falls into step beside me anyway, which is exactly the kind of thing Reid Blackwell does. He does not ask. He does not demand. He simply closes the distance and exists in your space until you either address him or accept him, and he is patient enough to wait out either option. It is deeply annoying. The hospital parking lot is half full. My car is a 2019 Honda Civic with a cracked passenger mirror and a pine tree air freshener that stopped smelling like pine approximately 14 months ago. I click the unlock button from 20 feet away, like I am planning to make a run for it. Are they yours? I stop again. My hand is on the door handle. The metal is cold through my glove, and I feel nothing from it, just surface temperature, just the ordinary world being ordinary. That's a complicated question, I say. Is it? I turn to look at him over my shoulder. You were declared infertile. All three of you. Medically confirmed, you said. So technically, by your PAC's own documentation, the answer should be no. I pause. But here we are. Something in his jaw tightens. The bond was still active. When you went into heat, I know what happened biologically, Reid. And I have had 8 months and an excellent OB to explain it to me. I pull the car door open. What I do not have is any reason to stand in a parking lot in 40-degree weather and have this conversation with you. Then sit in the car. He says it simply, without heat, without command. Just a suggestion offered by a man who knows he has no right to make demands. I stare at him for a long moment. He is not what I expected him to be right now. I think, somewhere in the back of my mind, I had constructed a version of this hypothetical reunion where whichever Blackwell found me first would be cold or aggressive or arrive with a legal team. I had prepared for a fight. I had my responses ready. I had practiced indifference for 8 months, and I am excellent at it. I was not prepared for him to look tired. I was not prepared for the way he is standing with his hands in his pockets, like a man who has already decided he deserves whatever I give him. I get in the car. I leave the door open. He crouches down beside it, eye level with me now, which I did not expect. He could have stood over me. He chose not to. I file that away somewhere I will examine later, privately, at home, where no one can see me doing it. How far along, he asks. 34 weeks. A breath leaves him, slow and quiet. Are you okay? Medically? I'm fine. The baby is fine. My blood pressure is slightly elevated because I apparently ran into you today, but otherwise we are doing great. The corner of his mouth moves, not quite a smile. Something smaller and sadder than a smile. Callum, he says my name differently this time. Not like a command. Not like a conversation opener, like something he has been holding in his mouth for a while and finally set down. What we did in Bend, the way we handled it. I know there's nothing I can say that. Then don't say it, I tell him. My voice comes out steadier than I feel. Not here, not like this. Okay. He does not push. Okay. We sit in that for a moment. The parking lot is quiet. Somewhere behind us, a car alarm chirps once and goes silent. Does anyone else know? He asks. I look at him sideways. About the pregnancy? About whose it is? I almost laugh. Reid, I barely know whose it is. I have a biological explanation and a due date. That is the full extent of what I know. My brothers don't know I'm here, he says. This wasn't a coordinated thing. I was at this hospital for a follow-up appointment. Running into you was cosmic punishment, I offer. I was going to say fate. I don't believe in fate. You believe in psychometry, he says quietly. I go very still. He knows. Of course he knows. The bond, however brief, however brutally ended, had carried more than scent. It had carried information. Things shared in those 2 weeks before Ben. Things I had told him in texts at midnight that I had since convinced myself did not matter. I look at him for a long moment. Get up, I say finally. You're going to hurt your knees. He stands, and something in the air between us shifts, just slightly, like a door that was sealed has developed the smallest crack. Not open, just no longer airtight. I'm not telling your brother, I say. Not yet. Not until I decide what I want. He nods once. That's fair. It's not fair, I correct him. Nothing about this is fair, but it's what's happening. I pull the car door closed. He steps back. I start the engine. In my rearview mirror, he is still standing in the parking lot watching me pull away, hands in his pockets, looking like a man who just found something he had already made peace with losing. I keep my eyes on the road. The baby kicks, hard, right under my ribs. I know, I tell him quietly. I felt it too. The drive home takes 22 minutes. I know every turn by muscle memory now. The left off Burnside, the slight dip where the road meets the bridge, the narrow street that leads to my building that Google Maps still insists does not exist. I have driven this route so many times in the last 8 months that my hands move without instruction, leaving my brain entirely free to do something deeply unhelpful, which is replay every second of that parking lot conversation in excruciating detail. He crouched down. Eye level. He did not have to do that. I turn up the radio. A pop song I do not know fills the car, and I leave it because silence right now would be dangerous. Silence right now would let me think about the way Reid said my name that a second time, low and careful, like something he was afraid to break, and I absolutely cannot afford to think about that. I am 34 weeks pregnant and my blood pressure is already elevated, and I have a meal plan on the passenger seat that is judging me for the crackers. I park. I sit in the car for 30 seconds longer than necessary. Then I get out, take the elevator to the 4th floor, and unlock apartment 4C. My apartment is small and specific. 1 bedroom, a kitchen that is technically a hallway with ambitions, plants on every windowsill because they do not have emotions I accidentally absorb when I brush past them, a second-hand couch in a shade of green that the previous owner called sage, and I call mistake. It is mine, and I love it with a ferocity that surprises me sometimes. I drop my bag on the couch, set the meal plan on the kitchen counter, and open the fridge. Inside, there is a container of leftover rice, half a lemon, oat milk, and something in the back that I am choosing not to investigate. I close the fridge. I open the cabinet. Crackers, more crackers. A can of soup that has been there since August. I make the soup. I am standing at the stove watching it heat when my phone buzzes. Unknown number. Portland area code. When I stare at it, the soup bubbles once. I answer it because I am apparently a person who has learned nothing today. Callum. Not Reid's voice. Deeper, flatter. The particular tone of someone who has spent years using his voice as an instrument of control and gotten very good at it. Reid Blackwell. Every muscle in my back goes tight. How did you get this number, I say. It is not a question. It is an accusation wearing a question's clothes. Reid called me from the hospital parking lot. A pause, measured, precise. He told me what he saw. What he saw, I repeat slowly, is a private medical matter that has nothing to do with your pack. Callum, Elliot. I turn the stove down. My voice is very calm. I am extremely calm. I am the calmest person in Portland right now. I want you to think very carefully about your next sentence, because the last time you had something important to say to me, you said it in a conference room in Bend, and then you watched me drive away and did not call for 8 months. So whatever you are about to say, it had better be worth the wait. Silence on the line. Long enough that I wonder if he hung up. You're right, he says. That stops me completely. Reid Blackwell does not say those words. Reid Blackwell is the eldest triplet, the one who runs the pack's legal infrastructure, the one who speaks in complete sentences with footnotes. He does not concede. He negotiates. He restructures. He does not simply say, you are right like a human person. I'm sorry, I say. You heard me. Another pause. I'm not calling to argue with you. I'm not calling to make demands. I need you to know that Reid acted alone today, and whatever he said or didn't say, it wasn't coordinated. He mentioned that. Donovan doesn't know yet. I carry my soup to the couch and sit down carefully. The baby is quiet now, settled low, a warm and steady pressure that I have gotten used to like weather. Okay, I say. Are you safe? Physically, financially, medically? The question catches me off guard. Not because it is warm exactly. Elliot does not do warm, but it is direct in a way that bypasses performance entirely, and that is somehow worse than warmth. That is just someone needing to know something true. I'm fine, I say. The pregnancy is healthy? Yes. A breath. Good. Then carefully. I'd like to meet with you, properly, all 3 of us if you're willing. No pack lawyers, no formal setting. Just a conversation. I eat a spoonful of soup. It is too salty. August was a long time ago. Why would I agree to that? Because whatever you decide to do, Elliot says, you deserve to make that decision with full information. And so do we. It is a reasonable argument. I hate that it is a reasonable argument. I was prepared for him to be cold and territorial and easy to dismiss. Instead, he is being logical and slightly humble, and it is messing with my entire defensive strategy. I'll think about it, I say. That's all I'm asking. Don't call this number again without texting first. Understood. And Elliot. I set the soup down. Outside my window, the Portland skyline is going gray and soft with the start of evening. When you tell Donovan, you tell him everything. No edited version, no managed information. In everything, a beat of silence. Everything, he agrees. I hang up. I sit in my green couch in my small apartment with my too salty soup and my meal plan and my 34-week-old secret, and I press my ungloved hand flat against my stomach. The baby pushes back, firm and certain and completely unbothered. "Yeah," I say quietly. "Me neither." Then my front door buzzer sounds. I look at it. It buzzes again. I was not expecting anyone. I set my soup on the coffee table and push myself up from the couch with the particular grace of a man in his third trimester, which is to say, no grace whatsoever. The buzzer goes a third time, two short, impatient bursts that tell me everything I need to know about who is on the other side before I even cross the room. Nobody buzzes 3 times like that, except one person in my life. I press the intercom. "If you bought me another pregnancy pillow, Marcus, I swear, it's a body pillow and you love it. Open the door." I buzz him in. Marcus Calloway is my best friend, my emergency contact, my unsolicited life coach, and the only person in Portland who knows the full story. He is also a beta, 6'1", the color of warm cedar, with the energy of someone who has had one too many espressos since birth. He appears at my apartment door 45 seconds later, holding a paper bag that smells like Thai food and wearing an expression that tells me he already knows something happened today. He looks at my face. I look at his face. "Who was it?" he says. "Come inside first." "Callum." "Marcus, I am 34 weeks pregnant and I have been standing for too long. Ned, come inside and sit down, and then I will tell you." He comes inside. He sits down. He puts the Thai food on the coffee table next to my too salty soup, looks at the soup, looks at me, and says nothing about it because he is a good friend. I sit back down on the couch. The baby settles. I pull the blanket from the armrest over my lap because the apartment is drafty, and I have given up pretending otherwise. "Reid was at the hospital," I say. Marcus is quiet for exactly 2 seconds. "Reid as in?" "Yes, Reid Blackwell. That Reid." "Marcus, I only know one Reid." "Callum." He puts both hands flat on his knees. His jaw is doing something tight and controlled that means he is choosing his words carefully, which Marcus does approximately 4 times a year. "What happened?" I tell him everything. The waiting room, the parking lot, where the crouching down, the phone call from Elliot 15 minutes ago. I tell it plainly and in order, and I watch Marcus's expression move through approximately 6 distinct emotional phases, including shock, protective fury, reluctant curiosity, and something that lands uncomfortably close to interest. When I finish, he is quiet for a moment. "He crouched down," Marcus says. "That is what you took from that story. Eye level, Callum. He made himself eye level with you." "I noticed," I say, in a tone that implies I did not want to notice and am annoyed that I did. Marcus picks up the Thai food and starts opening containers with the focused energy of a man who processes information through action. He hands me the pad CEW without asking, because he has been doing this for 2 years and he knows. Now I take it without thanking him because that is also part of our system. "What are you going to do?" he asks. "I don't know yet. Elliot wants a meeting. Elliot wants information. There is a difference." Marcus points a fork at me. "There is also the part where this baby is going to need a birth certificate in 6 weeks, and that birth certificate is going to ask some questions you haven't fully answered yet." I eat a bite of noodles. They are perfect. Marcus always orders from the right place. "I'm aware." "And the part where 3 alpha kings just found out they might not actually be infertile, which in pack law terms..." "I know pack law." Marcus. "Do you know the part where an unregistered omega carrying a confirmed alpha bloodline heir has exactly 0 legal protection without a formal bond declaration or pack acknowledgement on record?" I stop chewing. He looks at me steadily. Not unkind, just honest in the way that Marcus is always honest, which is directly and without decoration, and usually at the exact moment I least want to hear it. "I did not know that specific part," I admit. "I looked it up," he says. 4 months ago, when you started showing and you still hadn't told them." Something moves through my chest, warm and uncomfortable. I look at him sideways. You research pack law for me. Someone has to think about the practical things while you're busy being emotionally complicated and eating crackers for dinner." "I also had soup." "The soup from August?" I say nothing. He shakes his head and eats a bite of his own food. Outside the window, the sky has gone fully dark now. Portland lit up in its familiar wet orange glow, the sound of distant traffic, a low hum through the glass. My apartment feels smaller than usual, fuller, not in a bad way. I'm scared, I say quietly. Not the way I would say it to myself at 2 in the morning. The way I say it to Marcus, which is plainly, without performance, the truth with all its edges still on. He does not say it is going to be fine. He does not offer reassurance shaped like a lie. He just nods once slowly and says, and I know. I read a pen once, I say, at the PAC summit in Bend. Before everything. I picked it up off the table by accident, forgot I wasn't wearing my glove, and I got 3 seconds of Elliot's history from it. Marcus goes still. You never told me that. I never told anyone. I look down at my hands, both gloved now, always gloved in company, a habit so old it is basically a personality trait. He was lonely, Marcus. Reid Blackwell, coldest man in the Pacific Northwest, and what that pen gave me was just this deep, exhausted loneliness. Like someone who had been in charge of everything for so long, he forgot what it felt like to want something just for himself. The apartment is very quiet. That doesn't excuse Bend, I say immediately. No, Marcus agrees. It doesn't change what they did. No. I'm just saying I know something true about him that he doesn't know I know, and it makes hating him cleanly slightly more difficult than I would prefer. Marcus looks at me for a long moment. Then he says very carefully, Callum, what if the reason they rejected you in Bend had nothing to do with you? I look at him. He holds my gaze. What if there's something you don't know yet? The baby moves, slow and rolling and deliberate, like a punctuation mark at the end of a sentence neither of us has finished yet. I reach into my pocket. I wrap my fingers around my riverstone. I breathe. Then I guess, I say slowly, I'm going to have to find out. Marcus leaves at 9. He hugs me at the door, careful and solid. The kind of hug that accounts for the fact that I now occupy significantly more space than I used to. He makes me promise to eat the rest of the pad, see you. He also makes me promise to text him the second anything happens, which, given today's trajectory, could mean anything from another Blackwell appearing in my lobby to the baby deciding tonight is the night. I promise. He leaves. I lock the door. The apartment settles into its nighttime quiet. I clean up the food containers, put the leftover noodles in the fridge next to the August soup, which I throw away finally, and then I stand in my kitchen for a moment doing absolutely nothing, which is sometimes the most necessary thing. My phone is on the counter. No new messages. I pick it up. I open the text thread with the unknown number, which is now saved in my phone as Elliot B. Because I am practical even when I am furious. I stare at it for a long moment. Then I type, tomorrow. Neutral location. I choose where. 1 hour maximum. I put the phone down before I can second guess it. It buzzes within 40 seconds. Understood. Thank you. 2 words. No negotiation, no counteroffer. Just acceptance. Clean and immediate. From a man who I suspect does not accept things easily and is choosing to now. I turn off the kitchen light and go to bed. Sleep does not come quickly. It rarely does anymore. I lie on my left side with the body pillow Marcus bought me 4 weeks ago, which I told him was unnecessary and which I now cannot sleep without, a fact I will take to my grave. And I stare at the faint orange glow the city throws against my curtains. I think about what Marcus said. What if the reason they rejected you had nothing to do with you? I have turned that sentence over 17 times since he left, and it has not gotten more comfortable. It sits in my chest like a splinter, small and specific, impossible to ignore. The thing about psychometry is that it is not a perfect gift. It does not give me answers in full sentences. It gives me impressions, emotional residue, the feeling of a moment soaked into an object over time. 3 seconds from Elliot's pen gave me loneliness, deep and structural, the kind built over years. It did not give me why. There is always a why I cannot reach. I close my eyes. The baby is quiet. Outside, a car passes slowly, its headlights sweeping across my ceiling in a long, pale arc. and I follow it until it disappears and the room goes orange and still again. I sleep. Near the coffee shop I choose is called Groundwork on Northwest 23rd. Small and specific in mine in the way that places become yours when you have spent enough mornings in them alone. I arrive 20 minutes early because I refuse to be the one walking into a room where they are already seated and composed. I get a table in the back corner. I order peppermint tea because my OB banned caffeine, and I have chosen to be mature about it. I put both hands on the table, gloved, and I wait. They arrive together. Of course they do. I hear them before I see them. Not loudly, the opposite of loudly. It is the way the room shifts, the subtle recalibration of attention that happens when three alpha kings walk into a small coffee shop on a Tuesday morning in Portland. Conversations do not stop. People do not stare. But something in the air pressure changes, the way it changes before a storm, and I feel it across the room before I look up. Elliot comes through the door first. He is exactly as I remember, tall and precise, dark coat, the particular stillness of someone who has trained himself not to waste movement. Reid is behind him, and our eyes meet for half a second before he looks away. And then Donovan. I have not thought carefully enough about Donovan. Reid is the quiet one, the one who felt things and hid it. Elliot is the architect, the one who built walls and called them decisions. But Donovan is the one I understood least in Ben, because he said nothing and showed nothing, and stood with his brothers like a man who had already decided and felt no need to explain it. He is looking at me now with an expression I cannot immediately categorize. Not cold, not guilty, something more complicated than either. His jaw is sharp, his eyes are darker than his brothers', and he is wearing a gray sweater that makes him look significantly less like a territorial alpha king and significantly more like a person, which I find deeply inconvenient. They sit down, all three of them across from me, which means I am outnumbered 3-1, but I have the corner at my back, and I chose this table specifically, so that is simply a number situation and not a power one. I look at all three of them. You have 1 hour, I say. No interrupting each other, no interrupting me, and if anyone uses the phrase pack obligation, I will leave immediately. Reid's mouth does that almost smile thing. Elliot nods once. Donovan just watches me with that unreadable expression. Elliot, I say, you first. Elliot wraps both hands around the coffee the server just set down without him ordering it, which tells me he comes here too, or is the kind of man servers simply anticipate. He looks at his hands for a moment, then he looks at me. The rejection in Bend wasn't about you, he says. It was never about you. The coffee shop hums around us. Someone's espresso machine steams in the background. Then what was it about, I say. Elliot glances at his brothers. Reid is looking at the table. Donovan is still watching me. 6 weeks before the summit, Elliot says carefully, we received a threat against the pack, specifically against any Omega who bonded with us. He pauses. Someone wanted to use a bonded mate to get to us. The threat was credible. Well, we had already lost someone. The word someone lands with weight he does not explain. Not yet. So you rejected me, I say slowly, to protect me. We rejected you, Elliot says, because we were terrified of what would happen if we didn't. The room is very quiet at our table. I look at Reid. He is still looking at the table, jaw tight, and there is something in the set of his shoulders that I recognize now as shame rather than coldness. I look at Donovan, who is looking at me with that complicated expression, and I realize suddenly what it is. He is waiting to see if I believe them. I reach for my tea, both hands around the cup, gloves on, just warmth and ceramic in the ordinary world. Who did you lose? I ask. Elliot's hands tighten around his coffee, and Donovan speaks for the first time. Our Omega, he says quietly, shone on it before you, 2 years ago. His name was Jasper. The espresso machine steams. A child laughs somewhere near the front of the shop. I do not say anything. I just breathe. Because the splinter Marcus planted last night just shifted, and I feel the whole story change shape around it, and I am not ready, not even slightly, for what that means. Jasper. I turn the name over in my mind the way I turn my Riverstone in my pocket, carefully, with both hands, feeling for the edges. Tell me what happened, I say. It is not a demand. It is not gentle either. It is just the only sentence available to me right now that is honest. Elliot looks at Donovan. Donovan looks at me. Reid has not looked up from the table yet, but his hands are flat against it now, pressed down like he is keeping something from rising. And Jasper was our bonded omega, Donovan says. His voice is low and even and carries the particular quality of someone who has practiced saying painful things without fracturing. We met him at the Northern Territory Summit 3 years ago. The bond formed fast, faster than any of us expected. A pause. He was funny, loud, absolutely no patience for pack politics. Something moves across his face so quickly I almost miss it. He would have had opinions about this coffee shop. I do not smile, but I feel the shape of one, briefly, before it dissolves. He was killed, Elliot says, taking the sentence from Donovan with the precision of someone who has learned exactly when his brother needs him to. 14 months into the bond, a rival pack used him to deliver a message. They knew that hurting him would hurt us more than any direct attack. His voice does not waver. It is the voice of a man who has said these words enough times that they have worn smooth. They were right. The espresso machine has gone quiet. The child near the front of the shop is absorbed in something on a tablet now. Soft cartoon sounds drifting back to us. The ordinary world continuing. After Jasper, Reid says, and it is the first time he has spoken since they sat down, still looking at the table. We stopped. Everything. The pack went into lockdown. Elliot restructured our entire security infrastructure. Donovan didn't speak for 3 weeks. He pauses. I drove to the coast and sat on a beach in November for 2 days and told myself it was fine. He looks up at me. It wasn't fine, he says simply. When I look at all 3 of them, and I see it now, the thing I could not see in Ben because I was on the wrong side of it. The rejection was not indifference. It was scar tissue. 3 men who had already lost one person they loved, doing the only thing their fear knew how to do, which was push the next person away before the world could take him too. It does not fix anything. I need to be clear about that inside my own chest, where I can hear myself think. Understanding why someone hurt you does not unhurt you. The drive back from Bend at midnight with the radio up was still real. 8 months of doing this alone was still real. The moment Reid stood behind me in that waiting room, and I had to decide in 3 seconds whether to fall apart or hold my ground, that was still real and it still cost me something. But the shape of it is different now, and different matters. The threat, I say, the one you received before Bend, is it still active? Elliot and Donovan exchange a look so fast it is almost invisible. Almost. Elliot, I say. We don't know, he says. That is not a no. No, he agrees quietly. It is not a no. Something cold moves through me that has nothing to do with the temperature. I press both gloved hands around my tea, feeling the warmth through the fabric, grounding myself in the sensation because my brain is starting to do something loud, and I need it to be quiet for 1 more minute. So let me understand the current situation, I say, keeping my voice very steady. You rejected me 8 months ago to protect me from a threat that may still exist. I am now 34 weeks pregnant with what is biologically your heir, which makes me exactly the kind of high-value target that got Jasper killed. And you have just told me this in a coffee shop on Northwest 23rd, where anyone could walk in. The silence at the table is immediate and heavy. Reid closes his eyes briefly. Donovan's jaw tightens. Elliot, to his credit, does not look away from me. We swept the area before we arrived. We have 2 pack members outside. You were never unprotected from the moment you walked in, even before we got here. I stare at him. You had people watching me before this meeting. Watching over, he says carefully. That is the same thing with better grammar, Elliot. Callum, no. I set my tea down. My hands are steady. I am enormously proud of my hands right now. You do not get to make unilateral decisions about my safety without telling me. Not after Bend. Not again. If you want to be in my life, if you want to be anywhere near this baby, the first thing that changes is that. You tell me things. All of it. Every time. The table is very quiet. Then Donovan says, okay. Just that. No negotiation, no restructuring. Just one word, direct and immediate, from the man who said nothing in bend and is apparently done with silence as a strategy. I look at him. He looks back at me with those dark eyes and that complicated expression that I have finally, in the last 10 minutes, found a name for. It is not guilt. It is not calculation. It is grief that has been sitting next to hope for so long the two have started to look the same. There is something else, Reid says quietly. I turn to look at him. His jaw is tight again. The shame that was in his shoulders earlier has moved into his eyes now, closer to the surface, harder to manage. The infertility diagnosis, he says. It wasn't random. It wasn't just bad luck. I wait. Someone tampered with our medical results, he says. 4 months ago, we thought it was confirmed. We grieved it. A breath. Last week, our pack doctor found evidence that the test results were altered. Someone wanted us to believe we couldn't have heirs. The coffee shop hums. I look at him for a long moment. Someone who knew about me, I say slowly. Reid meets my eyes. Someone who may have known about the pregnancy before we did. And there it is, the third shape in the dark. The one that has been standing behind everything else this whole time, patient and quiet, waiting for me to turn around and see it. Someone out there already knows about my baby, and they have had 8 months to decide what to do about it. I sit with that for exactly 4 seconds. 4 seconds of the coffee shop humming around me, of cartoon sounds drifting from the front, of 3 alpha kings watching me process something that would make a reasonable person panic. And then I pick up my peppermint tea, take a slow sip, and set it back down. Okay, I say. Reid blinks. Okay? Okay as in, I heard you, not okay as in, this is fine. I fold both hands on the table. Walk me through what you know, specifically. No summaries, no managed versions, everything. Elliot straightens slightly. I think it is the pack leader equivalent of being impressed. 4 weeks ago, our pack doctor, Dr. Harmon, I ran a secondary analysis on our original fertility results. He found markers in the data that indicated external manipulation. Someone accessed our medical files and altered the hormone panel readings to show 0 viable output across all 3 of us. Who has access to your medical files, I say? That is what we are still determining. How many people? Inside the pack, fewer than 10. Outside it, he pauses. It gets more complicated. I look at Donovan. You said the threat before Bend was credible because you had already lost someone. Does the same group have the resources to access Blackwell pack medical records? Donovan's expression sharpens. Not with surprise exactly, with something closer to recalibration, the look of someone who just revised their estimate of a person upward without meaning to show it. Why possibly, he says. So the same people who killed Jasper may have tampered with your fertility results, I say slowly, and may also know that I exist and that this baby exists, which means the goal was not just to hurt you, it was to make sure you never had a successor. I pause. And now that the plan failed, biologically speaking, they need a new one. The table is very quiet. You should be in pack territory, Elliot says. Not a demand. The way he says it lands closer to fear wearing a practical suit. I live 4 blocks from the best prenatal clinic in Portland, and my entire support system is here, I say. I am not moving to a pack compound at 34 weeks pregnant because someone may be watching me. Callum, however, I hold up one gloved finger. I am also not an idiot. So tell me what protective measures look like that do not involve uprooting my entire life, and we can have that conversation. Elliot and Donovan look at each other. Reid is looking at me with an expression I feel in a place I am trying very hard not to acknowledge. We could station someone in your building, Elliot says carefully. Discreet. You would not need to interact with them. I want to approve whoever it is. Done. I want a direct line to your pack doctor in case anything changes medically. Also done. And I want full access to whatever you find about who tampered with those results. Not a summary, the actual information. Elliot pauses for only half a second. Done. I nod. I pick up my tea. It has gone slightly cool, but I drink it anyway because I need something to do with my hands that is not reaching into my pocket for my Riverstone, which would reveal more about my current stress level than I want these 3 men to see. There is one more thing, Reid says. I look at him. He reaches into the inside pocket of his jacket and sets something on the table between us. Small, rectangular, a key card in a plain white sleeve with a Blackwell pack insignia on the corner. We have a property, he says, 10 minutes from here. It is not the main compound. It is a house we use for private meetings, off the main registry, not connected to any of our public PAC infrastructure. Nobody outside the three of us and two trusted PAC members knows it exists. He slides it slightly toward me. It is not asking you to move. When it is asking you to have somewhere to go if you need it, the code is on the back. I look at the key card. I look at Reid. This is not us trying to pull you in, Donovan says quietly. It is us trying to make sure you have an exit that we do not control. I reach out and pick up the key card. I hold it through my glove for a moment, which means I feel nothing from it except its physical weight, which is almost nothing. Just cardstock and a magnetic strip and a code on the back. Just a door that leads somewhere safe. I put it in my coat pocket. I have a question, I say, and I need an honest answer. All three of them wait. In Bend, I say carefully, when Elliot delivered the rejection, when Donovan stood there and said nothing, I look at Reid. You were about to say something. Right before Elliot started speaking, I saw it. I know, you opened your mouth and then you closed it and then you let him talk. I hold his gaze. What were you going to say? The coffee shop breathes around us. Reid is quiet for long enough that I think he might not answer. Then he says, I was going to say I didn't want to do it. The words sit on the table between us like something fragile. Reid, Elliot says. Low, a warning wrapped in a name. He asked, Reid says simply. He does not look at his brothers. He looks at me. I was going to say I did not want to reject you, that I thought we were making a mistake. Elliot told me the night before what we were going to do, and I spent the whole drive to Bend trying to find another way, and I didn't find one in time, and then he stops. I just stood there. I breathe in slowly through my nose. I breathe out. I know I have held a lot of things quietly in the last 8 months. The heat of that drive home, the particular silence of doing every appointment alone, the first time the baby moved and there was nobody in the room to tell. I have held all of it with both hands and I have not dropped any of it because I am Callum Reyes and I do not drop things. But sitting in this coffee shop with peppermint tea gone cold and 3 men across from me who are all, in their separate ways, showing me the underside of something they have been hiding. I feel the weight of what I have been carrying shift just slightly. Not gone, not forgiven, not resolved, just slightly redistributed. Okay, I say again. Reid looks at me. Okay? Okay, as in, I heard you. I stand slowly with my third trimester dignity intact, which is a daily achievement I refuse to take for granted. I pick up my coat. I look at all three of them. I need time to think, to talk to Marcus, to decide what I actually want separate from what I am scared of and what I am still angry about. Because those are three different things and I refuse to confuse them. They all nod. I will reach out when I am ready, I say. Do not come to my apartment. Do not have your people follow me anywhere I have not agreed to. Do not make decisions about my life without asking me first. Understood, Elliot says. Understood, Donovan says. Reid says nothing. He just looks at me with those tired, honest eyes and nods once. I put on my coat. I pick up my bag. I walk toward the front of the coffee shop and I do not look back. Because I am strong and I am certain and I have made my position extremely clear. I make it exactly to the door. Then the baby kicks. Not the usual slow roll. A sharp, sudden movement high under my ribs that makes me stop walking and press one hand to my side with an involuntary breath. Callum. Reid's voice behind me, closer than I expected. He crossed the room fast. I'm fine, I say immediately. You stopped walking. Babies kick, Reid. That is their primary hobby. He is standing just behind my left shoulder, close enough that I can feel the warmth of him, the particular cedar and rain scent that the bond left burned into some part of my memory, whether I wanted it to or not. He does not touch me. He just stands there, present and careful, giving me the option of his proximity without making it a demand. It is, I think, when the most devastatingly considerate thing anyone has done in my immediate vicinity in 8 months. I've got it, I say, quieter now. I know you do, he says. Just as quiet. I know. I push the door open. The November air is cold and clean and real. I walk out into it. Behind me through the glass, I can feel all three of them watching. I do not look back, but my hand stays pressed to my side, warm against the movement underneath it. And for the first time in 8 months, I let myself think a thought I have been keeping in a locked room in the back of my mind. Maybe I do not have to do this alone. Maybe I never did. I make it half a block before my phone buzzes. Marcus. 1 message. 4 words. How did it go? I stop on the sidewalk. A woman with a stroller navigates around me with the practiced patience of someone who has been doing it long enough that stationary pregnant people barely register anymore. I watch her go, and then I look down at my phone. I type back, complicated, also possibly life-altering. Also, I finished the pad C new this morning, so you were right about the meal. 3 dots appear immediately. I am always right. Come over. I smile. It happens before I can stop it, small and private, aimed at the cracked pavement of Northwest 23rd Avenue. I put my phone in my pocket and I keep walking. And somewhere in my chest, between the fear and the anger, and the 8 months of carefully maintained distance, something very small and very stubborn decides to stay warm. I do not call Elliot that day, or the next. I take 3 days. And I spend them the way I spend things that matter, slowly and with both hands. I walk along the Willamette in the mornings with my gloves on and my Riverstone in my pocket, letting the cold air clear my head. I sit with Marcus on his couch and talk through every version of every possible decision until we have examined all of them from enough angles that I can finally see which one is actually mine. On the 3rd evening, I take off my right glove. I sit on my sage green couch in my drafty apartment, and I take off my right glove, and I hold the key card Reid left on the table. Psychometry is not always gentle. Sometimes what an object holds is loud and complicated and arrives in fragments, impressions layered over each other like transparencies stacked on a projector. But sometimes, when an object is new and has been held by someone with feelings close to the surface, it is very clear. The key card gives me Reid in a hotel room 3 nights ago, sitting at the edge of a bed, holding this card in both hands, not moving, just sitting with it the way I sit with my Riverstone, using the physical weight of it to stay grounded while something enormous moves through him. I feel the specific texture of what he was feeling, and it is not guilt, not strategy, not pack obligation. It is hope, terrified, tentative, barely breathing hope, the kind that has been burned before and is choosing, against all available evidence, to exist anyway. I put my glove back on. I pick up my phone. I call Elliot. He answers on the 2nd ring. Callum, I have conditions, I say. Could tell me. All decisions about this baby are mine first. You 3 are consulted, not in charge. If I say something stops, it stops. No pack law overrides what I decide as his parent. Agreed. Marcus stays involved. He is my person, and that does not change. Understood. And the 3 of you go to therapy. A pause. Separately and together. Because you lost Jasper and you never dealt with it properly, and I will not raise a child around 3 men who are still making decisions from a place of unprocessed grief. That is non-negotiable. The line is quiet for a moment. That is, Elliot says carefully, a fair condition. I know it is. I made it. Something that might, in very low lighting, be mistaken for warmth enters his voice. When can we see you? Tomorrow, I say. My apartment. Bring food. Something that is not crackers. They arrive at noon. Elliot brings food from a Thai place on Burnside that is better than Marcus's place, which I will never tell Marcus. Donovan brings a plant, which I was not expecting, a small pothos in a terracotta pot that he hands to me at the door, with absolutely zero explanation, and which I immediately love and place on the windowsill with my others. Reid brings nothing except himself, which he offers with the particular quiet of someone who has finally stopped pretending that is not enough. We eat at my small table, all 4 of us, which requires one person to sit on the piano bench I use as extra seating and have never used for piano. Donovan ends up on it. He does not complain. It is not comfortable exactly. It is new and slightly awkward, and there are long moments where nobody knows quite what to say, and we fill them with food and the ordinary sounds of an apartment at noon. But underneath the awkwardness, there is something else. Something that feels like the very beginning of something real. Not built on obligation or fear or pack law, but on 3 days of my own thinking and one key card in a pathos plant that nobody explained. After we eat, Reid does the dishes without asking. I stand in the kitchen doorway watching him, this enormous alpha king carefully washing my mismatched bowls in my tiny kitchen sink, and something in my chest does the complicated thing again. Not the fear-adjacent version from the hospital, something quieter, something that has been waiting a long time to be felt safely. Donovan appears beside me. He looks at Reid at the sink. He looks at me. "He talked about you," he says quietly. "After Bend." He thought he was being subtle. The corner of his mouth moves. He was not. "Donovan," Reid says from the sink without turning around, "I'm just providing context. I can hear you. I am 4 feet away." "I know," Donovan says pleasantly. I press my lips together to keep the laugh contained. It escapes anyway, small and real, and it moves through the apartment like something the walls needed to hear. Reid turns around from the sink. He looks at me laughing, and something in his face opens. Not dramatically, not cinematically, just quietly and completely, like a window that has been painted shut finally giving way. Elliot walks in from the living room. He looks at all 3 of us. He looks for one unguarded moment, like a man who has been holding his breath for 2 years and just remembered how to stop. "So," he says. "So," I say. We look at each other across my tiny kitchen. "This is going to be complicated," he says. "Elliot." I put my hand on my stomach, where the baby is doing his usual afternoon routine of rearranging my internal organs. I am 34 weeks pregnant, unregistered, and I just made 3 alpha kings agree to couples therapy as a precondition of my cooperation. Complicated is my entire personality. Donovan makes a sound that is definitely a laugh disguised as a cough. Reid is still looking at me with that open expression. "Can I?" he says, and gestures toward my hand on my stomach. Quiet, asking, no assumption. I look at him for a moment, then I take his hand and press it flat against my side. The baby moves immediately, decisive and strong, pushing back against Reid's palm like he has been waiting for exactly this specific hand and decided to introduce himself properly. Reid goes completely still. His breath stops for a full second, and then slowly, his entire face does something I do not have words for and do not need words for, because I am watching it happen, and that is enough. "Hi," he whispers. To a baby who cannot hear him yet, to a person who does not have a name yet, to something that started in rejection and fear and an unplanned heat on a cold October night and somehow, improbably, stubbornly became this. I do not cry. I am Callum Reyes, and I do not cry in front of people. My eyes are absolutely dry. The baby kicks again. Elliot puts his hand next to Reid's without asking, which is the most Elliot thing he has ever done. And I let him because it is the most Elliot thing he has ever done, and somehow it is perfect. Donovan steps forward last, slowest, most careful, and rests 2 fingers at the edge. Not demanding space, just present, just here. 4 hands, 1 small apartment, 1 baby who has been outnumbered since before he was born and is going to be absolutely fine about it. I look at all 3 of them crowded into my kitchen doorway with their hands on my side and their carefully managed expressions coming completely undone. And I think about Jasper, who was funny and loud and would have had opinions about this coffee shop. And I think about a pen that held loneliness like a stone holds warmth. And I think about a river stone I have carried for 5 years that is nothing but my own heartbeats now, unlayered over and over until it is completely mine. Some things take time to become yours. Some things, it turns out, were always yours. You just needed the right reason to stop running from them. His name, I say quietly, is going to be Jasper. The kitchen goes very still. Elliot makes a sound. Once, quickly controlled. But I heard it. Donovan's jaw works. He nods once and looks at the ceiling for a moment, the way people do when they are not crying. Reid looks at me with wet eyes and the expression of a man whose entire heart just rearranged itself around a single word. Yeah, he says. His voice is wrecked and quiet and completely real. Yeah, that's perfect. Outside my window, Portland does what Portland does in November. It rains softly and without drama against the glass. My plants sit on the sill. My stone is in my pocket. My apartment is full. I press my gloved hand over theirs, all of them, warm and certain and finally completely still. And for the first time in 8 months, I do not need to keep moving. I am already exactly where I'm supposed to be. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed it, you'll definitely love the next one. It's even crazier and more intriguing than you can imagine. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. The next story drops soon.